The seafood restaurant overlooking Puget Sound had been our special place for 15 years. The same table by the window. The same server, Patrick, who'd aged alongside us, his once black hair now threaded with silver. Even the same dish, Alaskan king crab legs, that Amanda insisted we order every anniversary. 15 years, almost 2 decades of building what I thought was a life. Tonight, Amanda looked particularly stunning. Her blonde hair cascaded past her shoulders, catching the light from the setting sun. She wore the sapphire necklace I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, a detail that would haunt me later. "Beautiful evening," I said, raising my glass of champagne. Amanda didn't raise hers. Instead, she traced her finger along the rim, not meeting my eyes. "I need to tell you something, Michael." There was something in her voice, a flatness, a rehearsed quality, that made my stomach tighten. I'd heard that tone before, from clients, from business partners about to deliver bad news. "What is it?" I asked, setting down my glass. She finally looked up. No tears, no emotion at all, really. Just certainty. "I'm going back to Chris." The name hit me like a physical blow. Christopher Blackwell, her college boyfriend. The one who'd broken her heart a year before we met. The one she'd sworn was ancient history. "Chris," I repeated, as if saying the name might make this moment less surreal. "Yes, we've been reconnecting." Reconnecting. Such a sanitized word for what was clearly an affair. "For how long?" I managed to ask. 6 months. She took a sip of water. "But it's not just about him, Michael. The truth is..." Her voice trailed off, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Guilt, perhaps, in her eyes. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "I never really loved you. Not the way I loved him." 15 years of memories flashed through my mind. Our wedding day, buying our first house, the 3 miscarriages that nearly broke us, the adoption that fell through at the last minute, the business I'd built from nothing while she pursued her career in architectural design, the vacations, the fights, the reconciliations, all of it, a lie. I should have yelled, should have demanded answers, should have flipped the table and stormed out. Instead, I just nodded. That quiet nod seemed to throw her. She'd expected drama, tears, begging, something to justify what she was doing. My calm response left her nothing to push against. "That's it?" she asked, her composure cracking slightly. "You're not going to say anything?" I picked up my champagne glass again and finished it in one swallow. "What would you like me to say, Amanda?" "I don't know. Something. Anything." She leaned forward, her voice rising just enough to draw glances from nearby tables. 15 years together, and you just nod? "Would you prefer I make a scene?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Beg you to stay? Throw the champagne in your face? At least it would show you cared." The accusation stung more than I wanted to admit. I had cared. God, I had cared so much. "When are you leaving?" I asked instead. She blinked rapidly. "Tomorrow. I've already packed most of my things." I nodded again and signaled to Patrick for the check. "So that's it?" Amanda's voice rose again. 15 years and you're just done?" I slid my credit card into the leather folder Patrick had discreetly placed on our table. "No, Amanda. You're the one who's done. I'm just acknowledging it." The drive home was silent. Amanda stared out the passenger window, occasionally checking her phone, which kept lighting up with notifications. Chris, no doubt, anxious to know if she'd gone through with it. Our house, a modernist structure overlooking Lake Washington that Amanda had designed herself, gleamed in the moonlight as we pulled into the driveway. It had always felt too sterile to me, too perfect, like a museum rather than a home. Tonight, it felt like exactly what it was, a beautiful, empty shell. Inside, Amanda headed straight upstairs, presumably to finish packing. I went to my home office, closed the door, and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, the one with the biometric lock, and pulled out a thick folder labeled simply, Contingency. 7 years ago, I'd been having drinks with my old college roommate, Jason Harrington. He was going through a nasty divorce at the time. His wife of 12 years had left him for her personal trainer, taking half his assets and primary custody of their kids. "You know what the worst part is?" Jason had said, nursing his third scotch. I saw the signs. For years I saw them. The late nights at work, the sudden interest in fitness, the new clothes, the way she guarded her phone. I just didn't want to believe it. I remembered patting his shoulder, offering platitudes about how he'd get through it, how he'd find someone new. No, you don't get it, Mike, he'd said, shaking his head. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you as a warning. You think your marriage is different? You think Amanda is different? Maybe she is. But if there's even a 1% chance she's not, you need to protect yourself, starting now. He raised his glass, his eyes hard. You think love is forever, but if your house ever falls apart, you better be ready. That's the only way you stay a man, not a victim. I'd laughed it off at the time. Amanda and I were solid. We'd been through too much together, but a seed had been planted. And a week later, when Amanda spent an entire dinner texting with someone she claimed was just a client, that seed began to sprout. So I started building what I privately called my paper fortress. First, I consulted with the best divorce attorney in Seattle, quietly, discreetly. Then over the years, I began systematically protecting my assets, creating trusts, moving money, documenting everything, all while hoping I'd never need any of it. In the folder was a detailed plan, complete with contacts, account numbers, and a step-by-step protocol for exactly this scenario. At the bottom was a business card with a phone number and the name Thomas Brennan SQ. I picked up my phone and dialed. It's Michael Reynolds, I said when he answered. It's happening. I'm sorry to hear that, Thomas replied, his voice professionally sympathetic. Clause 9A? Yes. I'll initiate everything first thing tomorrow. Are you sure about this, Michael? Once we start, I'm sure, I said, my voice hardening. 7 years ago, you told me to prepare for this day. Well, it's here. I understand. I'll call you tomorrow with updates. After hanging up, I took a long sip of bourbon, the liquid burning a path down my throat. Despite all my preparations, despite knowing in some part of my soul that this day might come, the pain was still overwhelming. 15 years. Gone in an instant. I heard Amanda's footsteps on the stairs and quickly returned the folder to its drawer, locking it. She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her face a mask of determination. I'll be staying at Chris's condo tonight, she said, as if announcing she was running to the grocery store. I'll come back tomorrow for the rest of my things while you're at work. Fine, I said, not looking up from my suddenly fascinating bourbon glass. She lingered in the doorway. This doesn't have to be ugly, Michael. We can handle this like adults. Now I did look up, meeting her gaze. You've been planning to leave me for months, possibly years. You've been sleeping with another man behind my back. You told me you never loved me. But sure, Amanda, let's handle this like adults. A flash of anger crossed her face. You know what your problem is, Michael? You've always been so cold, so robotic. Maybe if you'd shown some actual emotion once in a while. So now it's my fault you cheated? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Classic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying relationships are complicated. No, Amanda, relationships aren't complicated. People are complicated. Relationships are actually quite simple when both people are honest and faithful. Her eyes narrowed. You always think you have all the answers, don't you? Always so perfect, so controlled. She stepped into the room, her voice rising. Did it ever occur to you that maybe I needed more than just financial security? That maybe I needed passion, spontaneity, someone who wasn't always calculating the next 5 moves? I stood, anger finally breaking through my composure. And did it ever occur to you that maybe, just maybe, you could have told me that instead of spreading your legs for your ex-boyfriend? The slap came fast, stinging across my cheek. For a moment, we both stood there, shocked by the physical escalation. I hate you, she whispered, tears finally appearing in her eyes. I hate that you're making me the villain here. You did that all on your own, Amanda, I said quietly, my hand not even rising to touch my cheek. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed us, everything we built together. She shook her head. There is no us, Michael. There never really was. Just 2 people living parallel lives. And whose fault is that? I asked. I gave you everything I had, everything I was. No, you gave me everything you were willing to risk, she countered. but never your heart, never completely. The accusation hung in the air between us, cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. Had she been right? Had I held back, never fully committing emotionally? I don't want to fight with you, she finally said, stepping back. I just want to move on. Then don't, I replied, turning back to my bourbon. Close the door on your way out. After she left, I sat in the silence of our house, my house now, I supposed, and let the reality wash over me. I'd suspected this day might come, had prepared for it meticulously, but nothing could prepare me for the hollow feeling in my chest, the sense of failure, of betrayal. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, something I rarely did. Sure enough, there it was, posted just 30 minutes ago. Amanda and Chris, champagne glasses raised, her sapphire necklace, my gift, gleaming against her skin. The caption, "New Beginnings." So eager to broadcast her betrayal to the world, so confident in her new path. I took a screenshot, evidence. Then I sent it to Thomas with a simple message, initiate everything. His response came seconds later, consider it done. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Amanda's face as she told me she never loved me. Heard her voice as she accused me of being cold, calculating. I got up at 4 a.m., showered, and headed to the office before dawn. As CEO of Reynolds Technologies, I had plenty to keep me busy, and today I needed the distraction. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Thomas. Everything's in motion, he said. The bank accounts are already locked down. The property transfers are being processed. The letter to her employer has been delivered. And the other matter? I asked. Our investigator is meeting with Blackwell's former business partner this afternoon. If what you suspect is true, we'll have confirmation by tomorrow. Good, I said. Keep me posted. I hung up and stared out my office window at the Seattle skyline. 15 years with Amanda, and in less than 24 hours, I was systematically erasing her from my life. It should have felt wrong, vindictive. Instead, it felt like survival. My assistant, Rachel, knocked on my door. Your wife is on line 1, she said. She sounds upset. I'm sure she does, I thought. Tell her I'm in a meeting, I replied. Take a message. Rachel hesitated. She says it's an emergency. It's not, I said firmly. Take a message. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. What the hell have you done? Call me now. I ignored it. Then came another. They won't let me access our accounts. My money, Michael. This is illegal. And another. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't do this to me. I smiled grimly. Let her call a lawyer. By the time she found one willing to take her case, it would be too late. Throughout the afternoon, the texts grew increasingly desperate. The bank manager said everything's been transferred to a trust. How long have you been planning this? My credit cards are declined, all of them. Fix this, Michael. Chris says we need to talk. He says this isn't right. I ignored them all. I'd spent 7 years building my paper fortress. Now it was time to let it do its job. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and calls. I stayed at the office until nearly 10, partly to avoid going home to an empty house, partly because work had always been my refuge. When I finally did get home, I found Amanda sitting on the front steps, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. Her designer outfit from that morning had been replaced by jeans and a simple blouse, clothes she'd left at the house. You changed the locks, she said accusingly as I approached. Yes, I replied, stepping around her to enter the new code on the electronic keypad, and the security system. My clothes are in there, my jewelry, my art. You have no right. I have every right, I cut her off. The house is owned by Reynolds Property Holdings, LLC. Your name isn't on a single document. Her face paled. That's not possible. I designed this house. We built it together. You designed it as a contractor, I corrected her. You were paid for your services. Check your tax returns if you don't believe me. This is insane, she whispered, rising to her feet. You can't just erase me like this. I finally turned to face her fully. I didn't erase you, Amanda. You erased yourself when you decided our marriage meant nothing. That's not fair, she protested, her voice breaking. I never said our marriage meant nothing. I wasn't happy. And instead of talking to me about it, instead of trying to fix things or even just ending it honestly, you lied. You cheated. You conspired behind my back. I pushed open the door. Your clothes will be delivered to Chris's condo tomorrow. Your personal items too. Anything you dispute can be handled through the lawyers. The lawyers, she repeated numbly. Then something changed in her expression. Panic replaced by calculation. She stepped closer, her hand touching my arm. Michael, we don't need lawyers. We can work this out. I almost laughed. Now you want to work things out? Now that you're realizing actions have consequences? I made a mistake, she said, her voice softening as she moved closer. I could smell her perfume, the same one I'd bought her for Christmas. People make mistakes, Michael. Her hand slid up my arm, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt myself weakening. 15 years of intimacy, of knowing each other's bodies, created a powerful pull. Chris doesn't matter, she whispered, her lips now inches from mine. I was confused, stupid, but I never stopped caring about you. I looked into her eyes, searching for truth, and found none. Yesterday you never loved me, I said quietly. Today you never stopped caring. Which lie should I believe, Amanda? Her expression hardened instantly, the seduction act abandoned. You heartless bastard. You think you're so smart, don't you? Planning all this behind my back for years. 7 years, I confirmed. Ever since I noticed you were getting texts at 2 a.m. from clients. Shock registered on her face. You knew? All this time? I suspected. There's a difference. I stepped inside. Goodbye, Amanda. I closed the door on her protests, engaged the security system, and leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Through the window, I watched as she finally gave up and walked to her car, shoulders slumped. Part of me wanted to call her back, to hold her, to believe her sudden remorse, but that part was overruled by the memory of her words. I never really loved you. Some bells can't be unrung. The next morning, I received another call from Thomas. We've got it, he said, an edge of satisfaction in his voice. Blackwell has been running a property investment scam for the past 3 years. Your wife's signature is on multiple documents as a partner. I frowned, standing up from my desk. She signed investment documents with him while we were married? Not only that, Thomas continued, but she transferred nearly $200,000 from your joint business account to one of his shell companies last year. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'd suspected an affair, yes, but financial fraud? Can we prove it? I asked, pacing my office. Absolutely. The paper trail is clear. And here's the best part. Blackwell used her architectural expertise to create false property assessments, defrauded at least 4 major investors. We've got copies of everything. I closed my eyes, absorbing this new betrayal. What do we do with this information? We have 2 options, Thomas said. We can turn everything over to the authorities, or we can use it as leverage in the divorce proceedings. Do both, I decided. Send everything to the SEC and the State Attorney General, and make sure Amanda knows exactly what's coming. Consider it done, Thomas replied. Oh, and Michael? Her lawyer called this morning. Some young hotshot named David Miller wants to discuss a fair and equitable distribution of marital assets. I couldn't help but laugh. Tell Mr. Miller that there are no marital assets, only my assets, which were never commingled with Amanda's, as per the post-nuptial agreement she signed 3 years ago. With pleasure, Thomas said. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, turning Amanda's betrayal over in my mind. The affair had hurt, but this financial deception cut even deeper. Had she been planning this for years? Using me, using our marriage as cover while she and Chris built their scheme? My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Chris Blackwell. We need to talk, man to man. I stared at the message in disbelief. The audacity of this man to reach out to me after stealing my wife, after involving her in his criminal schemes. I typed back, nothing to talk about. Speak to my attorney. His response came quickly. You don't understand. Amanda didn't know what she was signing. This is between you and me. So that was his play. Throw Amanda under the bus to save himself? I felt a surge of disgust. Should have thought of that before you posted your champagne celebration on Instagram, I replied. Enjoy prison. I blocked the number and called Thomas again. Blackwell just reached out to me, I told him. He's trying to claim Amanda is innocent. Classic move, Thomas scoffed. Don't worry. We have her signature on multiple documents, plus emails discussing the investments. She knew exactly what she was doing. After hanging up, I found myself staring at that Instagram photo again. Amanda and Chris toasting their new life together. Her smile so genuine, so carefree. Had she ever smiled at me like that? I was interrupted by another call, this time from a Seattle number I didn't recognize. Mr. Reynolds? A woman's voice said when I answered. This is Detective Sarah Morgan with the Seattle Police Department, Financial Crimes Unit. We've received some concerning documentation regarding your wife, Amanda Reynolds, and Christopher Blackwell. I was hoping you could come down to the station to answer a few questions. Of course, Detective, I replied, trying to sound appropriately concerned. May I ask what this is about? I'd prefer to discuss it in person, she said. Would 2 o'clock work for you? I'll be there. I hung up and immediately called Thomas. That was fast, I said when he answered. What was? The Seattle PD just called. They want to interview me about Amanda and Chris. There was a pause. Michael, I haven't sent anything to the authorities yet. I was waiting for your final approval on the documentation package. A chill ran down my spine. Then how did they know to call me? Someone else must have reported them, Thomas said slowly. One of their investors, maybe? Or they reported me, I realized, to try to get ahead of this somehow. Possible, Thomas admitted, but unlikely to work if they're already under investigation. Go to the interview. Tell the truth. You have nothing to hide. That afternoon, I sat across from Detective Morgan in a sterile interview room at the Seattle Police Department. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Reynolds, she said, opening a folder. I understand this must be a difficult time for you. How so? I asked, maintaining my composure. She looked up, studying me. We're aware that your wife recently left you for Mr. Blackwell. That must be challenging. So they knew about the personal aspect. Interesting. May I ask how you became aware of that? Detective Morgan gave a small smile. Mr. Blackwell came to us yesterday. He claims you're framing him and your wife for financial crimes as revenge for their relationship. I couldn't help it. I laughed. That's quite an accusation. It is, she agreed, especially since we've been investigating Mr. Blackwell for the past 6 months, long before he claims your wife left you. Now that was a surprise. 6 months? She nodded. We received a tip from one of his investors last year. We've been building a case slowly, but yesterday things accelerated when Mr. Blackwell came in, essentially confirming our suspicions while trying to blame you. And my wife, I asked. Is she implicated? Detective Morgan's expression turned serious. That's partly why I wanted to speak with you. We have evidence suggesting she may have been involved, but we're trying to determine to what extent. Were you aware of any unusual financial activities on her part? Large transfers, new investment opportunities she may have mentioned? I thought carefully about my answer. Despite everything, some part of me still wanted to protect Amanda, but lying to the police would only make me complicit. About a year ago, I said slowly, I noticed some unusual transfers from our joint business account. When I asked Amanda about them, she said they were for a new property development project she was working on. I trusted her, so I didn't question it further. Detective Morgan made notes. And how much was transferred? Around $200,000 total, over several months. Did she ever provide documentation for this project? Contracts? Plans? I shook my head. No. Whenever I asked, she said it was still in the preliminary stages. I see. The detective closed her folder. Mr. Reynolds, based on our investigation, it appears Mr. Blackwell has been running a sophisticated investment fraud scheme. We believe your wife may have been helping him, knowingly or unknowingly, by providing falsified property assessments to potential investors. And what happens now, I asked. We'll be bringing Mr. Blackwell in for formal questioning today. As for your wife, that depends on what evidence emerges. She paused. I should warn you, this may become public. These cases often do. I nodded, feeling strangely hollow. I understand. After leaving the police station, I drove aimlessly around Seattle for hours, trying to process everything. The woman I'd spent 15 years with, built a life with, hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd potentially committed crimes, used our marriage as cover, stolen from me to fund her lover's schemes. My phone had been buzzing incessantly with texts and calls from Amanda, which I continued to ignore. Until finally, as I sat parked overlooking the sound, I decided to listen to one of her voicemails. "Michael, please." Her voice was desperate, tearful. "The police came to Chris's condo. They took him away in handcuffs. They asked me all these questions about property valuations and investment documents. I don't know what's happening. Please call me back. Please." The raw fear in her voice almost moved me. Almost. Instead, I called Thomas. "The police have arrested Chris," I told him. "They questioned Amanda but didn't arrest her. Yet." "Not surprising," Thomas replied. "They'll want to build a stronger case against her. Financial crimes are complicated. They need to establish knowledge and intent." "And do they have that?" I asked. "Did she know what she was doing?" There was a pause. "Michael, I need to be clear about something. The documents we have, they strongly suggest Amanda knew exactly what was happening. There are emails where she and Blackwell discuss how to structure the valuations to attract investors. She wasn't an innocent bystander." The confirmation hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, some part of me had hoped she'd been manipulated, deceived. "I see," I said finally. "What do you want to do?" Thomas asked. "We can still use this in the divorce, regardless of what happens with the criminal investigation." I thought about it, about Amanda's tearful voicemail, about 15 years of what I thought was love, about "I never really loved you." "Proceed as planned," I said. "No mercy." The next day I was in a meeting when Rachel knocked urgently on my office door. "Sir, your wife is here. She's causing a scene in the lobby." I closed my eyes briefly. "Call security. Have them escort her out." Rachel hesitated. "Sir, she's crying. She looks desperate." I thought about ignoring her, about letting security handle it. But that would only create more drama, more gossip. Better to deal with it directly. "I'll go down," I decided. In the lobby, Amanda stood near the reception desk, her normally perfect appearance in complete disarray. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Michael," she called when she saw me rushing forward. "You have to help me, please." Several employees had stopped to watch the spectacle. I took her arm firmly and led her to a small conference room off the lobby. "What are you doing here?" I asked once the door was closed. "Chris is in jail," she said, her voice breaking. "They're saying he ran some kind of investment fraud. They're saying I helped him." "Did you?" I asked coldly. "No, I signed some papers for him, but I didn't know what they were. I trusted him." Her eyes pleaded with me. "You have to believe me." "Like you trusted me when you were stealing from our business account?" She flinched. "That wasn't stealing. Chris said it was an investment." "And you believed him without seeing a single document? Without telling me?" I made a mistake." She reached for my hand, which I pulled away. "Michael, please, they're talking about pressing charges against me too. I could go to prison." "That's not my problem," I said, though the words cost me more than I let show. "How can you say that?" she cried. 15 years together, and you'd let me go to prison? 15 years together, and you'd steal from me? Cheat on me? Tell me you never loved me?" I shook my head. "You made your choices, Amanda. Now you get to live with them." "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Is that what you want to hear?" "What I want," I said, "is for you to leave. Leave my office. Leave my life. Go deal with the mess you've made." "I have nowhere to go," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "Chris's condo has been seized. My credit cards don't work. The bank accounts are frozen. I can't even get into our house. My house." "Not your house," I corrected her. "Never was. Check the deed." "Where am I supposed to go?" she demanded, anger replacing desperation. "You've taken everything." "No, Amanda. I protected what was mine. There's a difference." I stood, indicating our conversation was over. "I suggest you find a lawyer, a good one." "I can't afford a lawyer," she shouted. "You've made sure of that." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and placed $500 on the table. "That should get you a hotel for a few days. After that, you're on your own." Her face crumpled, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. "Michael, please, I'll do anything. Anything. For a moment, just a moment, I felt my resolve waver. This was the woman I'd built a life with, the woman I'd planned to grow old with. But then I remembered the Instagram photo, the champagne toast. New beginnings. Goodbye, Amanda, I said, walking to the door. You'll regret this, she called after me, her voice hardening. When the truth comes out about how you set me up. I turned, anger flashing through me. Set you up? I didn't make you cheat, Amanda. I didn't make you steal. I didn't make you commit fraud. You did all that on your own. You never loved me, she spat. Not really, I was just another asset to you. Another possession. No, Amanda, I loved you completely. With everything I had. I met her gaze. That was my mistake. I walked out, leaving her alone in the conference room. As I headed back to my office, I heard her sobbing behind me. Each step away from her was both the hardest and the easiest I'd ever taken. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, police interviews, and sleepless nights. Chris remained in custody, unable to make the substantial bail set by the judge. Amanda, though not yet charged, had been named as a person of interest in multiple news stories about the investment fraud. Her architectural firm placed her on indefinite leave. Her friends, many of whom were also my friends, began to distance themselves as details of the affair and the fraud allegations emerged. Meanwhile, Thomas's strategy was working perfectly. The divorce proceedings were moving forward rapidly, with every attempt by Amanda's lawyer to claim joint assets firmly rebuffed with irrefutable documentation. I remained at our house, my house, throwing myself into work and trying to ignore the emptiness that pervaded every room. Amanda had moved into a modest apartment after spending nearly a week in hotels, using the money I'd given her and whatever she could borrow from her increasingly reluctant friends. It was nearly a month after she left when I received a call from Detective Morgan. Mr. Reynolds, I wanted to update you personally, she said. We've arrested your wife this morning on charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Though I'd been expecting it, the news still hit me hard. I see. What happens now? She'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. Given the nature of the charges and her lack of prior record, she'll likely be released on bail, assuming she can post it. And if she can't, I asked. Then she'll remain in custody until trial, Detective Morgan said simply. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, staring at nothing. Amanda in jail. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved, behind bars. It seemed surreal. My phone rang again. An unknown number. Michael Reynolds, I answered. Michael? It's David Miller, Amanda's attorney. The voice sounded young, stressed. I know we've been adversaries in the divorce proceedings, but I'm calling about a more urgent matter. Her arrest, I surmised. Yes, her bail has been set at $200,000. She doesn't have it, not even close. And you're calling me because… There was a pause. Because despite everything, I don't think you want your wife of 15 years to sit in jail until trial. That could be months, possibly a year. Ex-wife, I corrected. Almost ex-wife. Even so, Miller pressed, I'm not asking you to post the entire amount. Just help. Whatever you can spare. I thought about Amanda in a jail cell, about her betrayal, about the choices that had led us both here. I'll think about it, I said finally. Her arraignment is at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Miller said. Please let me know your decision by 8. After hanging up, I called Thomas. Her lawyer wants me to help with bail, I told him. Don't do it, Thomas advised immediately. She made her bed. I know, I said. But jail, Thomas. Actual jail. She committed actual crimes, Michael. Multiple felonies. This isn't just about the affair anymore. I sighed. I know, 15 years. 15 years she threw away, Thomas reminded me. Don't let guilt cloud your judgment now. That night I barely slept, turning the decision over in my mind. By morning I knew what I had to do. I called Miller at 7:30 a.m. I'll help with bail, I said, but on one condition. Name it, Miller responded eagerly. I want to see her, alone, before the arraignment. There was a pause. I can arrange that, but I should be present for any conversation between you two. No, I insisted. Just her and me. Or no bail money. I'll see what I can do, Miller conceded. An hour later, I sat in a small room at the courthouse, waiting. The door opened, and Amanda was led in by a court officer. She wore an orange jumpsuit, her wrists cuffed in front of her. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "You have 15 minutes, the officer said, then stepped outside. Amanda stood awkwardly, not meeting my eyes. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat, her cuffed hands resting on the table between us. "Miller said you might help with bail," she said, her voice small. "I might," I confirmed. "Depends on what you tell me now." She finally looked up. "What do you want to know?" "The truth, Amanda. All of it. How long were you and Chris planning this? Was any part of our marriage real?" She flinched at the directness of my questions. "Chris and I reconnected about a year ago," she said slowly. "It was just coffee at first. Just catching up. But then you started sleeping with him," I finished. She nodded, looking down at her hands. "The fraud wasn't planned, at least not at first. Chris had this property development idea. It seemed legitimate. He needed my expertise, my name on some documents. Then one thing led to another. And the money from our account? He said it was an investment," she insisted. "A good one, that we'd double it within a year." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to," she admitted. "I wanted to believe in something exciting, something that was just mine, something that wasn't carefully planned and controlled like everything in our life together." The accusation stung. "So this is my fault? Because I was too controlled?" "No," she said quickly. "No, that's not what I meant. This is on me. All of it." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "I ruined everything, Michael. Our marriage, my career, my life. And for what? For a man who's now trying to blame everything on me." "Is he?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded miserably. "His lawyer told my lawyer that Chris is claiming I was the mastermind, that I used my architectural credentials to lure investors, that he just went along with my plan. And was that true?" "No, God, no. It was all his idea. I just wanted to believe in something. In someone." She wiped a tear. "I was stupid. So stupid." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession hanging between us. "Will you help with bail?" she finally asked. "I can't stay in here, Michael. I can't." I studied her face, searching for manipulation, for an angle. I found only desperation and genuine remorse. "I'll post your bail," I said finally. "But that's it, Amanda. After that, we're done. Completely." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," I said, standing. "Just remember this moment. Remember that when everything fell apart, when everyone else abandoned you, it was the husband you betrayed who still showed you mercy." The trial came 3 months later. Despite the evidence against her, Amanda maintained that she had been manipulated by Chris, that she hadn't understood the full extent of the fraud. The jury didn't buy it. She was convicted on 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of securities fraud. At sentencing, the judge took into account her lack of prior criminal record and her cooperation after her arrest. She received 5 years with the possibility of parole after serving 18 months. Chris Blackwell, with his longer criminal history and role as the primary architect of the scheme, received 12 years. I attended the sentencing hearing, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Amanda didn't see me come in, but as she was led away in handcuffs, she turned, scanning the crowd. Our eyes met briefly before she was taken through a side door. That was the last time I saw her. The divorce was finalized while she was in prison. True to my word, I provided her with a modest settlement. Not out of love or forgiveness, but because, despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to leave her with absolutely nothing after 15 years. I sold the house, too many memories, and bought a waterfront condo downtown. Simple, minimalist, no reminders of the past. Jason, my friend whose divorce had prompted my paper fortress, called me about a year after everything happened. "I heard through the grapevine," he said, "about Amanda and everything. Are you okay?" "I'm surviving," I told him truthfully. "You were smart," he said, "protecting yourself the way you did. Most guys aren't that forward-thinking." "I wish I hadn't needed to be," I replied. There was a pause. "Do you regret it? The way you handled things with her?" I thought about Amanda's face in that courthouse room, the genuine remorse. the desperation. No, I said finally. She made her choices. I made mine. 18 months later, I received a letter postmarked from the Washington Correction Center for Women. I recognized Amanda's handwriting immediately. For days, I left it unopened on my kitchen counter, debating whether to read it or simply throw it away. Finally, curiosity won out. "Dear Michael," it began, "by the time you read this, I'll be out on parole. I don't expect a response to this letter. I don't even know if you'll read it, but I needed to say these things, even if only to put them on paper." She wrote about her time in prison, about the therapy she'd undergone, about how she'd come to understand the damage she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. "I told you I never loved you," she wrote. "That was a lie, the worst lie I ever told. I did love you, Michael, but I was too broken, too selfish to love you the way you deserved, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." The letter ended simply, "I'm sorry for everything. Amanda." I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. Then I placed it in a drawer and closed it firmly. Life had moved on. I had moved on. 6 months later, I was having dinner with a colleague when I saw her. Amanda was working as a server at a small restaurant on the outskirts of Seattle, the only job her criminal record would allow. She didn't notice me, focused as she was on carrying plates to a nearby table. She looked different, thinner, older. The confident, stylish woman I'd been married to had been replaced by someone who moved through the world with her head down, as if trying to remain invisible. I paid the bill quickly and left before she could see me. That night, I thought about calling her, about seeing if she needed help. But what would be the point? Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. 3 weeks later, Jason called me. "Have you heard about Amanda?" he asked, his voice serious. "No," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. "What about her?" "She's living in that crappy motel out on Highway 99, the one where all the addicts stay. Someone from my office saw her there." "Is she using?" I asked, concerned despite myself. "Don't know," Jason admitted, "but it doesn't look good. Thought you should know." After hanging up, I sat in my condo, staring out at the water. Amanda living in a motel. The woman who had designed our beautiful home, who had worn designer clothes and driven a luxury car, reduced to living among addicts and prostitutes. It shouldn't have affected me. She'd made her choices. But still, that night, I found myself driving out to Highway 99. The motel was exactly as I'd imagined. A rundown 2-story building with peeling paint and flickering neon signs. I parked across the street, not sure what I was doing there. And then I saw her, Amanda, sitting alone on the steps outside her room, nursing a cup of coffee. Even from a distance, I could see the defeat in her posture, the hopelessness. She pulled something from her pocket, a photograph. Even from where I sat, I recognized it. Us, on our 10th anniversary, standing on the deck of that seafood restaurant overlooking Puget Sound, smiling, happy, or what I thought was happy. As rain began to fall, I watched her shoulders shake with silent sobs. Her head bowed over the photo, her lips moving in words I couldn't hear, but somehow knew. I lost everything. I started the car and drove away, leaving her alone with her regrets and the rain. Some choices can't be undone, some betrayals can't be forgiven, and some people only realize what they had after they've destroyed it completely. As for me, I would rebuild my life. Different, but stronger. Wiser, more cautious, yes, but also more aware of my own resilience. Amanda had told me she never really loved me. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. In the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I had loved myself enough to walk away with my head held high. Life goes on, even after betrayal, even after loss, even after the person you thought would be by your side forever walks away.